This week on the Mainly Moonology podcast, we are talking about three big things. We're talking about the fact that Mercury is still retrograde in the sign of Leo, which is really important for Leos and Aquarius people in particular, and Leo and Aquarius rising people. We are talking about the fact we have the full moon in Aquarius, also important for Leos and Aquarians, but also important for everyone else too. And finally, we're talking about the Jupiter-Saturn clash that we are getting this week and what it means for us all. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. Very glad to be here, hoping I can help you navigate the energies over the coming 7 days. So first of all, let's take a look at the astrology for the week ahead.
What's in the stars?
So the first thing to say is that this week is kicking off with a bit of a headache, possibly. We have Mercury going backwards, more about that in a moment. Mercury retrograde smashing into the planet of chaos and mayhem and havoc, Uranus. So if your week starts off a little bit jarring, a little bit electric, try not to panic. This too shall pass. And, you know, in some ways, it's a reminder to us all that life goes in cycles, and sometimes conversations can go really smoothly, and sometimes they can be very difficult and cause upsets, and people lose their cool, and the whole thing goes out of whack and out of, whatever. If you end up experiencing that this week, try not to assume everything is doomed. Remember that we're coming up to some big astrology, Jupiter-Saturn, more about that in a minute, and also the full moon in Aquarius, more about that in a minute. So feelings are going to be running high, okay? So Mercury-Uranus, it's almost like a test of how committed are you to staying calm when life gets crazy. You know, if you're on the spiritual path, and if you're like me, you've got a bit of a short temper. I do have a short fuse. I'm sure it's not hard to imagine. I'm half Maltese, half Irish, both nations, I think, quite well known for being, short fused. I have an Australian accent because I grew up there. But, it's like sometimes things are sent to test us, and it could well be that something that's happening at the start of the week really is a test to see how committed are you to just breathing out when people are really triggering you, when you feel like you're being provoked. How do you obviously one of the best things to do is a meditation practice on a daily basis. A lot of people say they have a non-negotiable daily practice of meditation. I can't say that's the case for me, but I do try and meditate every single day, sometimes twice a day, or chant or pray, whatever feels right on the day. But yeah, so just be aware that that's what we're dealing with as the week begins. That's August the 18th, which I believe is the Sunday. And then on August the 19th, on the Monday, we get a Sun-Mercury conjunction, which is important because, again, it's reminding us about the importance of communication, So, as the week begins, just try and think about who you want to be, try and act like that person. They say if you just keep acting like the person you want to be, eventually you will become that person. And really think about your communication skills. We also do have a somewhat mean Venus-Saturn opposition. We also have a Sun-Uranus Square, and then we have the full moon, and then we have the Jupiter square to Saturn. So overall, at the beginning of the week, we are all up against it, and it really is going to be a test of, how committed are we to, being level-headed, and how easily do we allow things to just carry us away. The rest of the week after that, it does actually get a lot easier. I'm going to drill down on those aspects in a minute, but it really does get a lot easier. I don't think there's anything else really alarming. So it's really the first half of the week that's going to be really kind of an opportunity for changes, because often when we get squares like we're getting, it's like something has to happen, something has to give. So it may well be this week you're feeling like, no, I can't do this anymore. I have to change this. I have to do this differently. In which case, brilliant, because, it's going to force you into making some changes. Maybe now is a good time to think, what changes do I really want to make in my life? When I ask you that question, what's the first thing that occurs to you? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Where do you really want to make changes in your life? So the Venus-Saturn on August 19, the opposition, it can be a bit painful. So again, if you're doing it tough at the start of the week, you have my sympathy. We all go through tough times, and this is particularly going to affect Taurians, Librans, Capricorns, Virgos, Pisceans. They're the ones who are really going to feel this the most likely, because of the way of where this opposition is taking place. But it can be a time where you feel like the world is a cold and lonely place, and hopefully, again, that is just a period, a couple of hours, maybe half a day, hopefully no more than that, where you start to think, actually, I need to try harder. I need to work harder on this particular relationship. Or it could be fears around money coming up, and you think, no, you know what? I actually need to be more disciplined when it comes to cash. It really isn't like an end of the world aspect or alignment, but it will possibly give you pause for thought. But the astrology that I really wanted to talk about today, this week, is the Jupiter-Saturn Square. All right. Now, that really is even though I'm talking about it after sort of giving you the leader, that's really the headline news of the week. So Jupiter is the planet of luck and abundance and travel and expansion and having fun and being cheerful and being optimistic. And Saturn is kind of the opposite of that. Saturn is the planet of hard work and facing facts and people being mean and feeling restricted, hard lessons and so on. So these two planets this week are clashing. Okay, now this is a fairly rare event because they are both what we call, because they are slower moving planets. So planets like Mercury and Venus and Mars, they just spin around the zodiac quite fast. Jupiter and Saturn are big outer planets, and they're both visible to the naked eye. So, probably if you really want to, you could probably manage to see them in the skies this week if you've got one of those apps on your phone. But essentially, when they clash like that, what we're getting is, the feeling, I want to expand my life. I want to be a bigger, better person, especially with all those challenges coming up that I mentioned. But also then there's the reality of, yes, but that person's really annoying, or, oh my God, I'm so bad at controlling my temper, or whatever. So it's very much sort of a tug of war that's going on this week between wanting to see the glass as half full, but then I'm going into seeing the glass as half empty again, or wanting to expand your horizons and then maybe being limited by, say, time or money, or by someone who's kind of getting in your way, or wanting to, even something as literal as wanting to travel. Jupiter's all about travel, but not being able to because of work. It's all about the desire to be big and wonderful and for life to be great, and then the reality that you have to work through this whatever obstacle, challenge, someone in authority stopping you from getting what you want, that kind of thing. Now, one of the really interesting things about this aspect this week is that it's actually going to repeat itself at the end of the year, at the end of December. Okay, so it's bookending between now and the end of 2024. So one thing you could do if you want to sort of live consciously, and I'm sure if you're listening to the Mayhem Moonology podcast, you probably do want to live consciously. If you want to live consciously, then really probably the number one thing to do around this Jupiter-Saturn clash, which is taking place twice, is pay attention this week to the lessons which are coming up for you. Because actually both Jupiter and Saturn have a kind of a learning aspect to them. Jupiter is more about actual education, and Saturn can be about, learn your lessons. But think about which lessons are coming up for you this week. Maybe if you journal, write about it in your journal. Just ask yourself, what lessons am I learning? Ask yourself every day, what lessons is life teaching me right now? Because they are probably the lessons that you're going to have to learn between now and the end of December. We are now in August, believe it or not. It's not that long until the end of the year. And so very much a time to have a think about what life is trying to teach you, and are you learning the lessons? Okay, really important to do that. So overall, kind of a tricky week. I didn't mention the other Sun-Uranus clash, which is going to add to the whole drama. But the good news is that this week there could be big turnarounds. I just want to touch a bit as well before we move on to the moonology of the week, which is the full moon. I want to just touch on the fact that Mercury is now retrograde in Leo. So if you've been paying close attention lately, you will know that Mercury retrograde started at the beginning of August, about the 4th, I think it was. I think it was the day of the new moon. And it started off in the sign of Virgo, but it started at something like, I think it was about 4 degrees of Virgo. There's 30 degrees in each sign. It goes from 0 to 29. So it started at 4, that it goes backwards. It's retrograde. So it goes 4 degrees, 3 degrees of Virgo, 2 degrees, 1 degree, 0 degrees. And then what it does is it actually then reverses back to 29 degrees of Leo. And let's see where it is right now, approximately. This week, yeah, it's like around about 27. It starts the week at 27 degrees of Leo, and it will keep going back to 26, 25, 24 until it finishes, until Mercury retrograde finishes, but it's not finishing this week. So hopefully when Mercury was retrograde in Virgo, you had a chance to work on whatever that is in your chart. If you are in my Mainly Moonology membership, which you can find out all about at mainlymoonologymembership.com. We sent you a PDF for Mercury retrograde in Virgo. Now we will send you one for Mercury retrograde in Leo, so you know exactly what it's all about and what it means. Another way to find out actually is in my book, the Mercury retrograde book, which I have here. This is actually the first edition, which was a hardback copy edition, but you can actually now get a paperback as well if you go to a bookshop or go on Amazon. So, and I have actually just released a masterclass on the Heal Your Life Plus Hay House video streaming platform. I went in and recorded that with them about a month ago now. So if you are on the Heal Your Life Plus platform, have a look for my 1-hour masterclass all about how to understand Mercury retrograde, how to understand where it's taking place in your chart, what it means in this sign or that sign and various elements. You can get to that via moonmessages.com/MRX for Mercury retrograde, and just X because you can abbreviate retrograde to RX. So moonmessages.com/MRX. So I thought what I would do is I would read a bit from my Mercury retrograde book about the upside of Mercury retrograde in Leo. So what this book does is it actually tries to help you understand that, you know, Mercury retrograde is not always a bad thing. People think it's so bad, and it's like a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, and everybody gets all worked up and excited when Mercury's retrograde and gets worried that the bad things are going to happen. Mercury retrograde is not bad luck. It's just annoying. Okay, so it also has a positive side, which is second chances, revamping, rethinking, revising, revisiting, and so on. So the upside of Mercury retrograde in Leo, this is a time for playful creativity. Let your ideas take their course, okay? You can't control what's going on around you, so there's no point in trying. And honestly, that goes triple this week because of all the clashes with Uranus, which is the planet that will not be controlled. So there's very much a sense that we can't control things this week, and we just have to let them unfold and see where they take us, okay? This time can be restful if you focus on your creativity, okay? It can be a good time to work on a creative project you worked on a while back but abandoned. So, you know, if you've been writing a screenplay, or, I don't know, baking cakes or gardening or painting, anything like that, good time to get back into it. Romantic issues are likely to hot up. Are you getting enough attention? Are you giving your partner enough attention? Does your beloved treat you like the king or queen you are? Because Leo is very regal. Are you confident enough in love? Love at the top of your agenda can be nice if your life is lacking romance, but the excess of passion can be a little tiring. So now's also a good time to ask yourself if you have a tendency to show off, which will do you no favors. That said, if you need confidence to shine in a particular situation, now is a good time to have another think about how you can fake it till you make it. 5 things to do with Mercury retrograde in Leo. Shine your light if you were too shy to shine before. Be generous with someone you should have been generous with earlier. Direct your passions through art. Be open to new ideas and new ways of having fun. And recommit to being more magnanimous. There's also a section here about what to watch out for, but I don't want to read out the whole entire chapter, but that is the Mercury retrograde book. And I'll put a link below to the Mercury retrograde masterclass on the Hay House platform in case you would like to do that. So there we have it. It's really a mixed bag of astrology this week. I would say proceed with caution. It's not like the planets are lining up and just telling us all to go and sit in the sun and drink daiquiris. It's more live consciously, think about what you're doing, look at the patterns you're creating in your life. How are you behaving? Are you acting out? Can you breathe through dramas? It's sort of a week, to try to be a better person. But what about the moon? Where's the moon? Will the moon save us? Let's have a look at the Moonology for the week ahead.
Where's the moon?
All right, so this week we have the full moon in the sign of Aquarius. Okay, the full moon in the sign of Aquarius, and guess what? It's actually a blue moon. I'll tell you why in a minute. Let me first give you some key words for this lunation. So one keyword that I came up with for this was black and white, because it's very cut and dried. There's also the concept of stinginess versus generosity. Be generous. There's the aspect of growth and limitations, because it's taking place around the time of the Jupiter growth and Saturn limitations clash that I spoke about. And optimism and pessimism, because that is also very Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter is very optimistic. I talked about the glass half full. Saturn, very pessimistic. So date and times of this full moon, just so you've got them. In LA, August 19, 11:25 a.m. New York, August 19, 2:25 p.m. London, August 19, 7:25 p.m. and Sydney, August 20, because of the time zone differences, at 4:25 a.m. So I'm just going to read you a bit from my Moonology diary for 2024, which is now well and truly sold out. So a couple of times a year, we get a standout astrological alignment that colors everything. I think you know which one I'm going to talk about because I've already talked about it. This full moon, which is considered to be a blue moon, as it's the 3rd full moon in a season of 4 full moons, is one of those times. Under the full moon in Aquarius, we're tapping into a clash between the slower outer planets, Jupiter and Saturn. So chances are, if you follow any astrologer's social media, or indeed if you've been listening to this podcast for the past 10, 15, 20 minutes, you'll have already started to read a lot about the alignment between Jupiter and Saturn, which will reach its apex just after the full moon. Jupiter is the planet of plenty and Saturn is the planet of luck. Jupiter is the glass half full planet. Well, I already said that, whereas Saturn is the glass half empty planet. Jupiter represents hope and Saturn represents despair. Are you getting the picture? More than likely, what we're going to end up with under this full moon with this aspect coming up is high spirits that get dampened, or a happier scenario perhaps of fearing the worst but actually getting the best. So it could be you fear something bad is going to happen, but actually what turns out is great. Work with the energies by sitting with any seemingly contradictory feelings you have under the full moon. Ask yourself where you could go a little bit harder in life, where you need to fall back. And ask yourself if you are seeing the glass as half full. Ideally, under this full moon, try and arrive at a mindset that's both optimistic and realistic. Expect the best, but have a contingency plan. As Mercury is retrograde at the time of this full moon, there is a good chance that issues coming up for you now are related to the past. It's a very good time to tie up loose ends and move on. And I do have a few exercises that you can do if you have the diary, including how to work with the full moon so that you can forgive someone and move on, whether you're moving on from them or you're moving on from the upset. Very good time to do it with the Jupiter-Saturn thing as well, because it's coming back, and it kind of gives us a container to really try and push ourselves to be the best person we can be, which is the theme of the week. And I will just mention here, my Moonology Diary 2025 has now been published. It's beautiful. Look at it. There is all sorts of stuff. There's loads of information there about the astrology each month, the Moonology, space to write your new moon wishes, to write your full moon forgiveness list, and so on. If you would like to grab a copy of that and get a whole stack of bonuses, go to moonmessages.com/my-diary. moonmessages.com/my-diary. Buy it there, register on that page, and then we'll send you a whole stack of bonuses. And we'll send you more bonuses as the year pans out. But overall, full moons are really important, most of all, I think, for forgiveness. So ask yourself, do you need to forgive yourself? Do you need to forgive someone else? And I will be doing a full moon ceremony on the Hay House page on my Facebook page, as I always do every month, and really looking at where we need to just let go and move on. And it might be just what we need in this week, because it is a slightly chaotic week. All right, so now I'm going to do a question from a reader in a minute. But first of all, let's do an oracle card for the week ahead.
A message from the Moonology Oracle.
All right, guys, so for this week's oracle card, for one thing, I think I'm going to ask a question, really, what do we need to know this week? What do we need to know to get us through all this quite chaotic astrology? And as I was getting ready to do this podcast, this deck really jumped out at me. I know many of you have it. It's a beautiful old deck from Doreen Virtue. It's the Ascended Masters deck. I do love her Goddess deck and her Ascended Masters deck. So if this card is for you, well, I'm going to say this card is for you because you're watching. It's the podcast you're watching. So there's a card coming here. What do we need to know about getting through the astrology of this week and the Moonology, the full moon, Mercury retrograde, Mercury-Uranus clash, Sun-Uranus clash, Jupiter-Saturn clash, so many clashes. What do we really need to know? Oh, well, that's unexpected. Not even sure how to interpret that one. So I hope that you are hoping for good romance, because the card has come up. That's come up is actually the twin flame card, which I was not expecting at all. I was expecting something like, remember to breathe, or drink more water, or, meditate. Let's see how we interpret that amid all this. All right, are you ready? Okay, this card indicates a twin flame relationship. I mean, so we're going to have this crazy week, and then we're going to have a twin flame feeling. I know you guys are into twin flames because I interviewed Regina, who does twin flames work, and that's been one of our best ever podcasts. All right, so if you're wanting to form a twin flame relationship, then I'm kind of interpreting what it says here. It says you must follow, but this week you must follow your inner guidance. Oh, and learn personal growth lessons. Now, this week, as I've been saying, it's all about personal growth. So that does actually make some sense. And have patience with divine timing, which is also so funny, because Jupiter-Saturn, Jupiter actually represents God, the God of gods, Zeus. And Saturn is Father Time. So that is also about divine timing. So I'm just going to read that again. To form a twin flame relationship, you must follow your inner guidance, learn personal growth lessons. It's all about personal growth this week with Jupiter and Saturn clashing, and have patience with divine timing, also Jupiter-Saturn. Once twin flames find each other, everything in their life reaches new heights of light and love. So there you go. I'm just going to read the additional meanings for this card. The person you're inquiring about is your soulmate. So if you're thinking of someone in particular, they are your soulmate or twin flame. If you are not yet, you will soon be with your twin flame. Keep your heart open, stay positive, and follow your guidance to manifest your prayers about your love life. So for those of you who are thinking, I want a new job or I want a new house, seems like the universe has other plans this week. Okay, so there we are. Oracle card for the week. It's all about romantic love. Which brings us to the final section of this week's podcast where I answer one person's questions.
Your questions answered.
You can send your questions in to support@yasminboland.com, support@yasminboland.com. Just put in the subject header podcast question, something like that. So actually this week what I've got is I've actually got a question about Mercury retrograde. Okay. Mercury retrograde is continuing for a few weeks yet. And somebody has asked, Sally from Bowral in New South Wales, Australia, has asked, I am very worried because I'm getting married when Mercury is retrograde. Is it bad luck? All right. So good question, Sally. Thank you for sending it in. So it's not bad luck. It's really not bad luck. Get that out of your head. Okay. That's the number one thing, is get it out of your head. It's not bad luck. However, that said, Sally doesn't say if she's remarrying. It would be a very good time to remarry because Mercury retrograde is often about redoing things. So if you or your husband are remarrying, or wife, that's very good. If you're remarrying, really for me, what it would mean if I were in your shoes, Sally, I would just be careful because Mercury retrograde, Mercury is the messenger of the gods, okay? And so when Mercury goes backwards, it can be that messages get mixed up. And it can be that you think you've ordered the catering and the catering person didn't get the message, or you think you've got the flowers coming and you've asked for pink flowers and the flower person is bringing you white flowers, or you think your dress is being taken up and it's not being taken up, or it's being taken down, or whatever. So it's just sort of things like that. There is nothing to worry about. If anything, because Mercury retrograde repeats up to 4 times a year, it can actually be that your marriage will sort of reinvent itself every time Mercury goes retrograde. But it could be that on the wedding day, there will be a few stuff-ups. You just have to triple check everything, make sure you've got the rings, make sure you've got your vows written down. It is not bad luck, okay? Let me just say that. It's not bad luck. Now, it's not a guarantee that your marriage is going to be absolutely fantastic, happily ever after, forever and ever and amen, because obviously there's other things going on in your chart. But as it goes with Mercury retrograde, it's not bad luck. So after this week, after the full moon, we will move into the waning cycle. So it's going to be a much calmer time. And I will be telling you more about that next week. So thank you so much for tuning in. Have a beautiful week. And I do hope to speak to you next week.